Imagine you could travel far beyond the edge of the familiar, past the gas giants, past the last flickers of warmth, to a place 5 billion kilometers away from the sun. Out here, the solar system begins to fade into a quiet, frozen frontier. The sun is no longer a golden orb that warms your skin. It is a tiny, piercing white dot in the black, a star that forgotten worlds orbit in the dark. For nearly a century, we saw this place as nothing more than a blurry pixel at the edge of our maps, a lonely, icy rock. A planet, then not a planet, then something else entirely. But today, we aren't looking through a telescope. We are crossing the void. We are stepping onto the surface of a world where nitrogen flows like water and mountains of ice reach for the stars. You are an indestructible observer. You cannot be harmed by the vacuum, the biting radiation, or the soul-crushing cold. You are here to witness the heartbeat of a tiny giant. Welcome to Pluto. As we descend, the first thing you notice is how small it really is. At just 2,300 kilometers across, Pluto is smaller than our own moon. You could fit the entire surface area of Pluto inside the borders of Russia with room to spare. But as the ground rushes up, the scale changes. Below us, a massive pale feature dominates the landscape. It is the heart of Pluto, Tama Regio. A vast, bright expanse of frozen nitrogen that looks like a beacon in the dark. Wrapped around it are dark reddish-brown highlands stained by eons of chemical reactions under the faint ultraviolet light of the sun. These stains are made of complex molecules called tholins. Up close, they aren't just brown. They are deep, rusty crags that look like weathered iron, contrasting sharply against the pristine white of the heart-shaped glacier. We pass through a thin blue haze. The nitrogen atmosphere, it's fragile, clinging to the surface like a ghost. And then, without a sound, we touch down. You step off the lander, and your very first movement nearly sends you soaring. The gravity here is weak, just 1/12 of what you feel on Earth. If you weigh 60 kilograms at home, here, you weigh barely 5. You don't walk on Pluto, you glide. Every step is a slow-motion leap. Try it. Push off the ground. You rise slowly, drifting upward as if you're underwater, hanging in the air for what feels like an eternity before the weak pull of the planet brings you back down. It is a world of effortless movement, but the silence is what hits you next. There is no wind whistling through your helmet, no rustle of gravel. The atmosphere is so thin that sound is almost nothing to travel through. You can feel the vibration of your boots hitting the ground through your suit, a dull thud in your bones, but the world around you is quiet. However, if you stand perfectly still, you can feel the planet groaning. Because sound travels through the solid ice beneath your feet, you hear deep, metallic-sounding cracks and pops. The nitrogen glaciers are churning, and the water ice bedrock is shifting under the weight of the mountains. It sounds like the world is breathing. Look up. The sky isn't black, at least not yet. Because of that thin nitrogen haze, the horizon has a soft, distinct bluish tint. It's a strange, alien twilight, and there, tucked away in the corner of the sky, is the sun. It is a tiny, intensely bright point of light. If you look back toward the sun, you might see a faint, ghostly stream of gas flowing away from the planet into the void. Because Pluto's gravity is so weak, the solar wind is constantly stripping away its atmosphere, giving the planet a massive, invisible tail, just like a comet. Even at high noon, it feels like the middle of the night. The sun provides as much light as a very bright full moon, but it's concentrated into a single, freezing needle of white. The shadows are long, sharp, and pitch black. If you step into the shadow of a boulder, you vanish. There is no scattered light to fill the gaps, just brilliant white and absolute void. We begin to trek across the nitrogen plains of Sputnik Planitia. The ground beneath your boots isn't rock, it's nitrogen ice, and it feels strange. It's softer than water ice, more like the texture of a candle or hard wax. If you knelt down and pressed your hand against it, you could almost feel it give way. This entire plain is alive. The ice is churning, heated by the faint warmth from deep inside the planet. It forms giant polygonal cells, miles wide like a slow-motion lava lamp made of frozen gas. But then, the horizon rises. In front of us are the mountains, the Aladrisi. These are not made of nitrogen. At these temperatures, nitrogen ice is too soft to build a mountain. These peaks are made of water ice. Out here, water ice doesn't act like ice. It is as hard as granite. It is the bedrock of Pluto. These mountains tower 6 kilometers into the sky, their jagged peaks coated in a frost of methane that glitters like diamonds in the dim sunlight. We walk past dunes made of frozen methane grains, shaped by winds we can barely feel. We pass dark, circular mounds with holes in the center right mons. These may be cryovolcanoes. Instead of molten rock, they might once have spewed a slushy mixture of water, ammonia, and ice. Everything you touch is ancient, everything is frozen, and yet the planet feels busy. as the slow rotation of the planet carries us. A massive shape rises in the sky. This is Charon. It is Pluto's largest moon, but calling it a moon feels wrong. Charon is half the size of Pluto itself. It is so large that it doesn't really orbit Pluto. Instead, the two worlds orbit a point in the empty space between them. They are a double planet, locked in a permanent gravitational embrace. Charon hangs in the sky, huge and gray, covered in deep canyons and a dark reddish cap at its north pole. It doesn't move. Because Pluto and Charon are tidally locked, Charon stays in exactly the same spot in the sky forever. If you are on the backside of Pluto, you will never see it. If you are here, you can never escape its gaze. As the stars come out, brilliant, unblinking, and more numerous than you could ever imagine, you see the other moons: Styx, Nix, Kerberos, and Hydra. They are tiny, irregular sparks tumbling through the dark, dancing around the two giants at the center of the system. You might think a world this cold is static, but Pluto has seasons. Because its orbit is an extreme oval, it sometimes gets closer to the sun and sometimes much further away. When it's close, the surface ices warm up just enough to turn directly into gas. This creates a temporary atmosphere. Imagine standing here as the summer peaks. The nitrogen ice beneath you starts to hiss, turning into a thin fog. Tiny flakes of methane snow might drift down, settling on the dark red highlands like a light dusting of sugar. There are no thunderstorms here, no rain, just the silent, ghostly movement of gases shifting from the ground to the sky and back again. As Pluto moves further from the sun, this atmosphere will eventually freeze and fall back to the ground as frost, leaving the sky perfectly clear for decades. A day on Pluto is not a quick affair. It lasts 6.5 Earth days. The sunset is a masterpiece of slow-motion cinema. Because the sun moves so slowly across the sky, the golden hour lasts for a long time. The blue haze of the atmosphere catches the light, stretching the twilight out for hours. The horizon glows with a soft, neon blue rim. The shadows of the water ice mountains stretch for miles across the nitrogen plains, reaching out like dark fingers. As the sun finally dips below the horizon, the temperature begins to plummet even further. The blue haze fades to a deep, hollow black. The only light left is the dim reflection of the stars on the white ice. It is a long, cold night. You have 3 Earth days of darkness ahead of you before the sun shows its face again. Let's talk about the cold. The average temperature here is minus 220 degrees Celsius. On Earth, we think of liquid nitrogen as something incredibly dangerous. Here, nitrogen is a solid rock you can stand on. Oxygen, the air you breathe, would be a frozen slush here. If you weren't indestructible, the vacuum would claim you in seconds. The extreme conditions mean your body would be unable to cope with the low pressure and the lack of warmth. There is no protection from the cosmic rays hitting the surface. But as you stand here, feeling the ground through your boots, the cold doesn't feel like an enemy. It feels like a builder. It is the force that carved these mountains and froze these plains. It is the architect of Pluto's beauty. Without this extreme cold, Pluto would just be another featureless rock. It seems impossible, a world of frozen gas and darkness, but science tells us that Pluto is hiding a secret. Deep beneath those nitrogen plains, there's likely a liquid ocean of water, kept warm by the decay of radioactive elements in the rocky core and insulated by miles of ice. This dark, subterranean sea might have existed for billions of years. Could there be life there? We don't know. If there is, it would be nothing like us. It would be extremophiles, microscopic organisms huddled around faint thermal vents in the pitch black. They would never know the sun existed. They would never see the rings of the giants or the blue haze of the atmosphere. Pluto may look dead on the outside, but it might be cradling a warm, wet heart in the dark. It's time to leave. We push off the surface one last time, drifting slowly away from the ice mountains and the giant heart of the plains. From up here, Pluto begins to shrink. It returns to being that tiny, lonely dot at the edge of the map. In 2006, we told the world Pluto wasn't a planet anymore. We reclassified it. We called it a dwarf. But names don't matter to Pluto. It doesn't care what we call it. It remains a world of stunning complexity. A place where geology still happens, where atmospheres breathe, and where ice behaves like mountains. It is a reminder that even the smallest, furthest corners of our solar system are filled with majesty. There is beauty in the darkness. There is life in the cold. And there are still so many stories waiting to be told at the edge of the sun's reach. As we pull back into the void, look one last time at the little world with the big heart. If this journey to the edge of the solar system moved you, consider hitting the like button, subscribing, and turning on the notification bell. We have so many more worlds to walk on, and I'd love for you to join me for the next one. Thank you so much for watching.